So I think this next 4-year period is going to be, while it's fraught with danger. I want to be clear about that. That I have no doubt whatsoever that there are significant indicia that this could go wrong here. But the problem is that the private aerospace corporations are the ones who are trying to keep it secret because they want to get patents on the technology with regard to and the problem is when you get into the private sector, one of the primary sources of funding in the private sector is the military. They get billions of dollars of grants and stuff from the Defense Department. The House and the Senate will give the Department of Defense virtually any amount of money they ask for. The whole issue of consciousness and what the impact of the recognition of the existence of an extraterrestrial civilization, our relationship with them, what they portend for our future relationship, all of that stuff is what needs to be emphasized. So this isn't a commercial venture. This is a scientific and spiritual adventure that needs to be emphasized. And fortunately, Jake Barber, as you noticed, one of the primary aspects of his interview with Ross Coulthart, on the News Nation, was that he had this extraordinary experience of a consciousness, a dramatic elevation of his own personal consciousness when he encountered this craft. That was apparently had extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional non-human life piloting it, and he was very candid about it, which is quite remarkable. Even for a special forces guy, these tough guys, he basically cried right on television when he was talking about what an astonishing, unique, and extraordinary experience it was to encounter this intelligence. So that helps. From this gentleman, a particular person, we now know who it is that is funding their private operation. I'm just hoping that we can steer people into this issue of consciousness and the whole metaphysical and geopolitical and philosophical domain that we need to look at, rather than everybody getting fixated on the technology and the kind of mechanics of the whole thing. But this is clearly a breakthrough, with them coming forward and now starting to provide video of some of the actual craft.
Well, I assume they feel that the public isn't ready to handle it. It'll cause chaos and communication disruptions and make us vulnerable to our enemies, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, actually, they've been much more specific in my conversations with the people that are part of the secret keeping, is they've said they're afraid that it will undermine the present pillars of power.
Well, if you had to put a probability, a percentage on the idea that there are actual, let's call them written agreements between governments and extraterrestrial organizations, how likely do you think that is?
I think that there are protocols that have been established. That's clear. I mean, that's 100% clear. That there are some kind of protocols that have been developed pursuant to which our especially our military forces and our intelligence gathering satellite systems, etc., have some kind of working relationship with not stepping on each other's toes right here. Now, as to how formal that is right now, as to exactly which agencies have, because it's not within their purview. It's not within the purview of the Central Intelligence Agency, for example, to be working out diplomatic relationships with with foreign powers. We're supposed to have a constitutionally structured government that does this, and so But I think that it's absolutely certain that, that there are some kind of working protocols that have been established. What we need to do now is we need to kind of formalize these. And we need to involve the other people and other nation states on our planet in this process. We can't have the kind of superiority complex of the United States elite governing circles. I think that they are the ones that are going to be able to call the shots on this, that we really have to have some sort of geopolitical engagement. So that I think that the treaties that we have with each other here on our planet, among the 193 nation states that are part of the United Nations, need to come to grips with this right now, because they need to work out, we need to work out some kind of a unified sense of how it is we want to interrelate with these beings before we can engage in bilateral formalization of our relationship with them. Because you certainly don't want individual nation states establishing individual treaties with one or another of these species. So that isn't the ideal way to proceed. There's an entire octave spectrum of worldviews shared among our human family. And those that more integratively approach the issue of consciousness are going to rise into the ascendancy here. Those who are kind of steadfastly atheistic and radical materialist, scientific, logical positivists, are going to be more traumatized by this because they've been so emphatic and aggressive for so long about actively denying the reality of the conscious realm. But as you move into the progressive and utopian and spiritual worldviews, you're going to see more and more acceptance of this. And what we're talking about here, the Aboriginal people, the people who have not been kind of jammed into the scientific, logical, positivist worldview, have been engaging with this extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial consciousness for some time in their spiritual traditions. And because of that, they have developed this faculty of spiritual communion, which is, in my opinion, a faculty that I think I may have mentioned the story to you, maybe in private conversations, that back in 1968, when I had just come from Harvard College and had gone up into Harvard Law School, we got word that the professor of intellectual history at Harvard University was going to be delivering his final lecture, and he was asked, what the most important single human insight, intellectual insight, and he said it was clear that what all of the greatest minds in our human family had come to realize, that we were right in the process of evolving to the next stage of our biological evolution, and that Homo sapiens sapiens was going to be evolving into a new species, and that the primary differentiation between the new species and this was the full flowering of this additional faculty. And it was the faculty that people refer to as extrasensory perception. But it had to do with telepathic communication. It has to do with precognition. It has to do with non-local communication, and all of this particular biological faculty, like seeing or hearing, enables some of our people to have direct, immediate experiential engagement with the unitive phenomenon that bonds every irreducible integer of matter in the entire physical universe into one unified harmonic whole. And there is an additional belief that beyond that, the next additional stage of evolution of our human family actually enables us to reach out and have direct, immediate experience of the infinite and eternal sea of completely undifferentiated consciousness that abides out beyond the sum total of mass and energy. in our physical universe, that there's an infinite and eternal sea of completely undifferentiated consciousness that simply abides. And this was the origin of the actual condensation of consciousness into the original unit of matter that has through this process of evolving, has evolved into our physical universe. This is an area where the Western spiritual traditions need to learn more from the Eastern traditions, even of Buddhism and Hinduism, and certainly shamanism of the Aboriginal spiritual communities. And so this is going to be an extraordinarily exciting time, not only for scientists and for engineers and for historians, but also for people in the spiritual community. Given the pace of the information coming forward now, that there's almost no way that this is not going to start coming forward during the next 4-year period. That there's the period of this particular administration. If we can actually get the institutions to function the way the Constitution envisioned them doing, then the institutions will be strong enough to process this event that's happening here. So I think that this is extremely important. And to be frank, it wasn't entirely clear that if things had just continued to go on as normal, with an additional administration of Joe Biden or even Kamala Harris, that was, let's keep on going the way we've been going, and allow that these kind of tragic failures of some of our institutions were being ignored. And the one of which is the whole bifurcation of the academic and intellectual communities in our universities from the spiritual realm. In the entire bifurcation between spiritual insight and the laws and public policies of our nation states. We have to go through a really radical adjustment here, I believe, in the next 4-year period. And that's why it's going to be so important for people to come together and to stop this kind of dialectical confrontation, not only between science and religion, but between the left and the right, between the Republicans and the Democrats, the Western civilization and Eastern civilization, this entire inclination to the dialectic. Our culture is out of balance in the second chakra. That we're just locked into this dialectical dynamic. And we have to understand that there's a higher manifestation of each of our chakras, so that there's a Taoist, relationship between the yin and the yang here, between the spiritual and the rational. We have to come to grips with this now. So I think this next 4-year period is going to be, while it's fraught with danger. I want to be clear about that. That I have no doubt whatsoever that there are significant indicia that this could go wrong here. That Donald Trump personally has a number of what I think are very serious character problems that could cause this to kind of gravitate toward kind of an authoritarian regime, where he would take advantage of the destabilization of the old structures in a way to increase his own personal power. Even under the point of potentially declaring a state of national emergency, wanting to suspend normal constitutional protections, even potentially invoking the continuity of government authority that has been authorized by Congress. We have to be careful about this, that those of us who are adherents to natural law principles need to reinforce the fundamental underlying natural law principles that undergird our Constitution here during this period of instability. So that's part of my role as an attorney and as general counsel for the New Paradigm Institute, to make sure that we safeguard these, that very importantly will protect the agency of our human species in dealing with the extraterrestrial universe. That that people are going to be tempted to abandon any kind of self-respect for our human family. to see that, we're a million years behind, another civilization in our consciousness. That doesn't mean that we just succumb to being told what to do by them, or that they just substitute their view of reality for anything that we might think. So the maintenance of our agency as a species is going to be very important here. And I think that the safeguards of our Constitution are very valuable here in this period of disequilibrium. But we do need a period of disequilibrium to unstick some of these institutional flaws that we have. The national security state, the individual nation-state imperialism, the injustices of an uncontrolled capitalist system on the planet, crushing people and setting up huge, vast discrepancies between 1/10 of 1% of the population of our planet and the vast majority of our people. We have to overcome these differences of race and gender and national origins. This is an astonishingly rich opportunity that we have here, and that's how we should hold it. That's how we should view this, in my opinion.
One of the paradoxes that comes to my mind as you're speaking about this is that it seems to me that the societies that proclaim to be most open to the idea of communication with extraterrestrials are the indigenous peoples who have talked about it for centuries and seem to think of it in a matter-of-fact way. But these are the same people who very often have no laws, no courts, no police, no jails.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. But they also have no highways, they have no bridges, so what we have to do, again, we have to try to establish a balance here. There are all kinds of amenities that are perfectly appropriate for our human species to have, and that I understand that some of the Aboriginal communities have eschewed basically any contact or communication with the kind of the more scientific culture, and they have foregone some of the benefits that can be derived because they think that the dangers are so profound. Because they see what's happened in our culture. And of course, the ET people have been telling us about this. The people that they've been contacting and having communications with, they say, look, there's some very clear things that you need to do. You've got to stop the nuclear weapons programs. You've got to get rid of these nuclear weapons because you're going to eventually, because of the bipolar dynamics you have going on between nation states, you're going to resort to thermonuclear war. And you can destroy the life-generating capacity of your planet. And the same thing with contaminating your planet with all these chemicals and effluents from your energy systems into your atmosphere. You're going to destroy the life-generating capacity of your planet. And let's be clear, the life-generating capacity of your planet is one of the important factors that's causing the extraterrestrial civilization to be so interested in your planet. Because, even though there are clearly other planets that gestate life, because they have done so. But the reality is that it's not an absolutely common feature of all planets in the galaxy, much less in the universe. And so that the preservation of this unique capacity that some planets have to gestate life and to support life in its evolutionary process, this is the fundamental dynamic of the universe. And it is sacred. This is a sacred dimension of our universe. And the Aboriginal tribes, place such emphasis on all of that they have actually consciously tried to avoid a culture that has begun to suppress that.
When they walk back, they sing through the forest.
that some people, human beings that stand out in a summer field and look up into the stars and see the overwhelming beauty and majesty of our universe, and are just enthralled at how joyous and wonderful this is. And some people experience it with complete fear and feel completely isolated, and what an overwhelming phenomenon the universe is. And so that we have to, without being patronizing, we have to be sympathetic to some people who have a more difficult time enjoying and accessing the more subtle dimensions of our consciousness that are able to resonate in harmony with the kind of unifying frequencies that exist in our universe.
That he was hoisting on his helicopter. But at the same time, he also acknowledged that the program he was involved in used microwave pulse weapons to shoot UFOs down out of the sky so they could be captured. And apparently the psionic assets, these human beings, are involved in some sort of a program to control the UFOs with their own consciousness, get them to land, and where they can also be captured.
That's right. No. This is fairly frightening. this kind of the commandeering of people who have these kind of subtle psychic capabilities to setting up what they refer to as the honey trap. To kind of send out signals. Oh, we're here. We love you. Please come. Please come. And then when they come near them, try to knock them out of the sky and capture them. And according to some reports, actually kill the beings that are on board. I have direct information that's happened in the past. I would assume that the extraterrestrial beings that travel sort of extra-dimensionally here to our planet, that they're sophisticated enough to realize this is like highly undeveloped species act sometimes. So, they're not going to hopefully respond, overreact to this and say, oh, you people are so awful, we ought to exterminate you or get rid of you, or actually undertake to utilize our high technologies to engage in a war with you. They're obviously tolerating this. It's like your little, 1-year-old that you're carrying around is fascinated and starts pulling your hair, and you don't punch them in the face or anything. What you do is say, okay, that I'm here to help get you adjusted as you evolve into maturity. This is what's happening with us. We are in the process of having to establish a symbiotic relationship with this extraterrestrial civilization that is going to assist us in progressively moving into a higher and higher level of consciousness. We're going to start to, I believe, shed, not so much shed entirely, these lower chakra energy systems of our bodies, because as we all know, that all of the chakras have to be functioning in a fully healthy way in order for the full human being to manifest. So you don't just say, oh, I've got to cut off my first and second and third chakras, because I want to all be in the heart here, or I just want to be up in my sixth chakra. We've got to embrace all of them, and I think that this is symbolic of the fact that we have to embrace all of the different worldviews that our human family has, and understand that in isolation, any one of those worldviews, if it attempts to assert itself as the only worldview, is out of balance.
You're building a bunker out there in Wyoming?
The rule to Fight Club is you never talk about Fight Club. Right? So if you're building a bunker, you don't tell people, because then everybody knows where to go when everything goes south. So, it would be remiss of me to not say that. Yeah, I think people look. Being prepared is not a bad thing. Now, being paranoid, maybe.
A bunker feels a little paranoid, Lou.
Well, look, there's an old saying, right? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
is a bunker? Wait, I mean, we hear all about these billionaire bunkers. Last I checked, though, the Pentagon doesn't pay billionaire contracts to its employees.
No, it
so
does not.
what does your bunker look like? Like allegedly.
Allegedly. So here, how about this? Let's say in general terms, if you want a bunker, and by the way, it's not just for, end of the world situations. It could be for things environmental, like even tornadoes, right? We have a lot of tornadoes out in Wyoming. So, people who live in Florida will say, yeah, we have these hurricanes, winds get to 110, category 1, category 2 storm, maybe once every 10, 15 years in Florida. This is like almost every other week where I live in Wyoming. We have winds. It's not uncommon to have a 90-mile-an-hour wind or 100-mile-an-hour gust of wind. So homes have to be built a certain way. They just will not survive the environment. So if you have, for example, a tornado rolling through, maybe you want to use the bunker for that, just in case, right? So a lot of people out there in Wyoming are there for several reasons. A lot of people just want to disappear. And out in Wyoming, we're a constitutional state, so you can build whatever you want on your property. And so, yeah, people build bunkers. And typically what you want in there is enough rations and food and water, right, that can sustain you for a prolonged period of time. Now, how long that is depends on the size of your bunker and whatnot. You also need ventilation. People think, oh, I'm just going to seal myself underground. Well, you just built a coffin. Congratulations. It's not going to do you very much good. You also want medicine. And you also, when I say medicine, everything from antibiotics to how to do field expedient surgery, pain medication if you need it, everything you would need to sustain yourself if you didn't have any type of medical resource or communications or food or any other type of logistics, you have to be able to survive by yourself. And now, if you go back 100 years, in human history, most people knew how to do that automatically. They were, scratching out a living on the land and whatnot if they were living in a rural community, and it's not a big deal. But nowadays, a lot of people have forgot, what it takes to survive a situation.
They're too busy tweeting.
Yeah, and other things, and I think some of these skill sets have been lost. How do you tie a tourniquet? When do you tie a tourniquet, right? Under what circumstances? Look.
When they walk back, they sing through the forest.
Oh,